It's a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer. I'm here with co-host Craig Pasta Jardula. Let's look at some of the coverage right now on all the floods happening. You guys heard about the Texas flood, New Mexico. Now we got stuff going on in New Jersey and New York. It's everywhere. And Florida doesn't look too hot either right now. It's pretty much all over the place. And in the month of July, here we are. The Guardian's going to tell you what the problem is. Really is. And I think the first word of the problem, it starts with the letter C and rhymes with Schmeimlet. Monday briefing, the toxic cocktail of climate denial, federal cuts, and the Texas floods. In today's newsletter, amid the at least 129 deaths and billions of dollars of damage, there's been little reckoning about the part global heating and cuts to public service may have played in the disaster. So the death toll from the floods in Texas from last week, they've climbed to 129. We reported last week on this when they hit over 100, and it's still rising. And this includes at least 27 children and counselors at Camp Mystic in Kirk County, which we covered that story last week for you guys. Now there's still 160 people missing. Authorities warn that the numbers of casualties is likely to rise. On Sunday morning, some search operations were canceled as heavy rains and strong winds battered the state once again. The flash floods, which swept through large parts of central Texas, are being described as one of the worst natural disasters in the state's history. At Camp Mystic, rain gauges recorded 6.5 inches of rainfall in just 180 minutes. Flood struck the climate crisis worsens. The flood struck as the climate crisis worsens, and the Trump administration's hollowing out of federal agencies have left critical services such as National Weather Service under severe strain. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is also facing continued threats of defunding. Yet, despite the scale of devastation, there has been little public reckoning over climate breakdown or the erosion of essential public services. Instead, conspiracy theories have abounded. Conspiracy theories, you say? Okay, well, let's look at one of those conspiracy theories. It's lasers, I think is the word we're looking for. Lasers.
Fire a laser at the sky and make it rain. Oh, that sounds more interesting. Dave Malkoff explains.
Just another stormy, wet afternoon in central Florida. But what if you could pick up all this rain and move it where it's needed? Texas or California? What if a laser could start the rain?
So you can almost use it to set it off.
Matt Mills got into lasers as a kid.
It's just innately cool.
Now he's part of a team of scientists and military backers on the cutting edge of a new technology, making lasers powerful enough to reach up here into the sky where a thunderstorm is just about to start. In the near future, a push-button storm starter could be a real thing.
Just imagining this situation. If there was a rain cloud that was going to pass over an area of drought and not rain, you could, theoretically induce the rain and get the rain where it's needed.
That storm starter isn't the laser beam itself, but rather a popping energy that comes off of much higher power beams than this one. The problem is those pops have always had trouble getting into the sky. Now Matt has discovered a way to get the laser to pop all the way in the clouds. In theory, that's what starts a storm. We created a cloud of our own behind Matt's lab. A few months ago, Matt's colleagues in Arizona got this working experimentally. The next step is to get it to work in the sky.
The particles in the air are rubbing together, forming static electricity, and the conditions are now right. And they just need to be triggered now.
Does this concern you that you may be messing with Mother Nature and doing something that you don't completely understand up here in the cloud?
I suppose that's always a danger, but we're not even near to the case where it could be dangerous yet, so not too much.
It's almost like an on-off switch for a thunderstorm.
That's the idea behind it.
Right here in the cloud.
Yep.
In Orlando, Dave Malkoff, the Weather Channel.
The Weather Channel reporting on lasers and fun little games you can play with creating weather with lasers. Okay. Well, I'm sure that has nothing really to do with what we're talking about when it comes to the Texas flood, these other floods that are happening. This is going on right now in New York and New Jersey. Here's some cell phone footage. Again, I want to be very clear with our audience. The last story we played has absolutely nothing to do with deaths. So I don't want anyone to believe that whatsoever. It's as the Guardian reported, it's conspiracy theory to talk about weather modification. It's conspiracy theory to talk about, oh, here's one in New Jersey. Let's see this one.
Oh my God. Holy crap.
This is just yesterday in New Jersey. And as I was saying, yeah, this is nothing to do with any of this tech that is actually available. And we're talking about controlling the weather modification. We're talking about, cloud seeding. You and I have had discussions about direct energy weapons, the laser stuff, but none of that has anything to do with this. This is, as the Guardian tells us, Craig, this is 100% due to climate change. Again, this is happening right now in July in New Jersey and New York. And then we mentioned New Mexico and, of course, the Texas flood, which we also reported on. Stuff's probably going to be popping up more in Florida as well. So, okay. Whatever. This is the same. We see this every year, right? We see floods like this every year. Nothing going on here. Nothing to see here. But apparently, the people, when they're polled by CNN, they seem to think they're maybe, I don't know. They don't seem to be as concerned about the climate change part. Again, this is just a poll from CNN. Nothing that we're reporting on. But here's the data they came up with as far as people's concern about climate change. These are people living in these areas right now that are flooded.
Afraid of climate change, and the answer is Americans aren't afraid of climate change. Climate activists have not successfully made the case to the American people. I want you to take a look here. Greatly worried about climate change. We have data going all the way back since 1989. Look at that. It was 35%, 2000, 40%, 2020, 46%, and 2025, 40%, which is the exact same percentage as back in 2000. Despite all of these horrible weather events, the percentage of Americans who are greatly worried about climate change has stayed pretty gosh darn consistent, which kind of boggles the mind a little bit. Granted, everything that we see on our television screens, our computer screens, the hurricanes, tornadoes, the flooding, but yet greatly worried about climate change, 40% in 2025, the exact same percentage as back in 2000.
Wow. What do you think it is, Craig? Why do you think nobody is as interested in climate change since the year 2000, even though we see record numbers of storms and issues like we see hurricanes, fires, right? We had the LA fire, we have the Lahaina fires. We have this record amount of these disasters, yet people are not interested. Why do you think that is?
Well, because the government always lies to people, so we don't know what truths they're telling us and where they're lying. There's zero transparency about how cloud seeding works and how often they're doing it, and geoengineering and trying to control that weapon. The military is pretty much taking it over and try to use it as a weapon while they're screwing, with Mother Nature. And I often think about the Dubai situation where it rains every single day in Dubai, and then they had that flooding issue problem a couple of years ago. It was like Mother Nature's doing the same thing, almost identical to what you saw in New York, you saw over there too as well. But the thing they tried to do is they tried to use it and weaponize it to the point where they blamed climate change on the citizens and the people and their everyday lives, rather than look at the things that really hurt the environment awfully worse. And that's what the oligarchs are doing with their extraction, whether it be deep water mining or cloud seeding to do that, or dropping bombs and stuff. We understand who is dirtying the ozone in our Mother Nature more than anything. And that's the real argument right now, okay? Does climate change exist? Doesn't exist? Is the hoax or this or that? No, listen, you can have a nuanced conversation to say, listen, we don't want to dirty planet Earth. Because let me tell you something, even though the conservatives always ignore climate change is real or it's fake and this and that, and what I'm saying, they ignore that fact and say, get out of here, it's fake. There are a lot of practices by big corporations, oil companies included, that are dirtying our water, dirtying in our environment, and we should be able to have a conversation and say, okay, we don't have to be an alarmist about it. We don't have to make sure people get gas stoves, but let's look at the real people who are really destroying the ozone layer, destroying the Amazon, extracting things, and not cleaning up after themselves. But by having this situation so partisan, we never get to those nuanced conversations. It's either you believe in it or you don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
Donald Trump is a man, Matt, who believes that climate change is a hoax invented by the Chinese.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the Chinese did it. Here's the, but you make a great point about, like, we don't want our populist righty friends, and we have some, of course. We say, hey, you guys are going a little too far off the deep end on not caring about the planet that we're on. We have to care about it, and we have to be suspicious when the people telling us, it's time to lock down in 15-minute sittings. The 15-minute city thing, it's BS. We know the carbon footprint thing is BS. How do we know it's BS? Well, because they won't implement it for themselves. So they got that part right. Now, why does it seem like they don't care about climate change? Maybe because they're using it in their advantage and keeping us in the position we're supposed to be in, and that is slaves to the system. And that's what better tool to use than climate change, because it's the emotional trigger. A lot of people will go with it and say, oh, you don't want Lahaina to burn down again? Well, you better stop it with your plastic straws. So we're on to that, but we just don't want to go the full out on the other direction and say there is no issue with how we are behaving on this planet. But when we want to have an honest talk, we want to talk about this technology, which does exist. We need to have this discussion. This guy, I don't know if did you see this guy, Craig? He's been going around making the rounds. This isn't a joke. This is real. And this guy loves talking, as you're going to notice in a second. His name is Augustus Dorico. It's a cloud seeding company. Is Rainmaker. He's a 25-year-old Peter Thiel fellow. So he was set up by Peter Thiel. So here we go. We're into this AI technology, funding this type of weather technology to manipulate weather. He was actually doing cloud seeding in Texas, according to him, only 2 days before. Then they pulled the plug because they knew they were going too far. And so this stewarding the natural world campaign, which they were in the middle of doing, right over Camp Mystic, right over those areas that were flooded with tons and tons of water. He said, well, no, it wasn't us. We stopped doing it right before, and then it naturally happened on its own. So you think we're making this up? Well, let's see when CNN tries to bring this guy on to tell us once and for all that we are conspiracy theorists talking about cloud seeding and that it doesn't actually exist. So Augustus, go ahead and tell your CNN audience that we're all being paranoid and cloud seeding doesn't actually exist.
Accused of engineering the weather and weather modification. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I think that this is a very consequential technology, right? Not just anybody should be allowed to modify the weather. There should be oversight and transparency. And so,
oh, you're not doing the thing we brought you on to do, dude. You were supposed to tell us it was not a thing. And now you're telling us not only is it a thing, but only certain people should be allowed.
He said the words transparency, Matt.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What do you write? You want to let the people know? What is wrong with you, Augustus? Get him out of there.
Yeah. But this is him right before the Texas floods. And he's in Florida trying to push us because he's telling us he wants it around the entire country. This isn't just about Texas. This is about Florida. This is about everywhere.
Augustus Dorico. I'm the CEO and founder of Rainmaker. We're a cloud seeding company that is enhancing precipitation via advanced radar and also drones for the sake of supplementing water supplies for farms, cities, reservoirs, and wildlife throughout the United States.
I mean, that's his intro. That should be on his bio. I think CNN forgot to look up his bio and have it say cloud seeding expert. Not just cloud seeding expert, but cloud seeding, I would say genius, who is entitled. This is entitlement. I'm qualified to do this. Not anybody, but me. And we know he does. He also has a very religious background where he uses, so he amplifies the Christianity part of his mission, and he brings that, and that's why the Texas, the church that he was aligned with, and the Camp Mystic, which is a very biblical church or camp, has a biblical backing and Christian backing. He brings that in there as well, and talks about this kind of calling from God to do God's work, and he's chosen to do this. So he also has gone off on those type of tangents as well. And so here we are trying to figure out what can we do with this if CNN and these companies, these networks don't even want to have these discussions. They're like, oh, let's not have him come on anymore because he's actually going to have a conversation that we don't really want to have this conversation at all. We're going to still try and pretend that this doesn't even exist. Well, we're trying to say, well, we know it exists. Who's in control of this? Who decides who gets to do this stuff? And look at the people affected by the fact if you can pinpoint a cloud in the sky and say that's the one we're going to cloud seed from, and you're going to just create water and use it, and you're saying, oh, it's to help when farmers need more water, like, so you're going to just justify when and where you want to use your X-Men powers, because it's like Storm. It's literally like the X-Men character Storm saying, I'm going to create weather for good. We really need a storm right now, so I'm going to create it. And don't worry, I'm entitled for this power. I'll decide when it's okay and when it's not, and we'll all be good. So, now there are some that are pushing back. We know that Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing a legislation. I don't know how far it's going to get, but to try to at least have a paper trail of cloud modification. We're talking about cloud seeding being like, it needs to be recorded. We need to have accuracy about when this is happening. We need to have it cannot be off the books anymore. So that's a good step. But the language in some of these things are this was pointed out. I'll just put this one up if you didn't see this. There's some language in some of these bills, and this particular one about even getting the authorization to do this type of weather experimentation in Florida. This was MJ Truth Ultra was sent this by a congressperson. Let me put this up, and it's very concerning because it's kind of some of the language that justifies, and maybe Craig, you'll see the same similarities in this language that we've seen with pharma, where pharma gets kind of this immunity to not have they're free to kind of change language to fit their needs, so they can look into the camera and say, we're not actually doing the thing we're doing because we changed the language. So now we can swear on a Bible that we're not actually doing it. So this is what MJ Truth Ultra says. So this congressperson from Utah wants to remain anonymous, sent over documents. This is how weather modification works. The language is diabolical. When researching the language, I found that the same for New Mexico, where we know that those flash floodings are happening. These bills declare that water derived from cloud seeding shall be considered part of the natural water supply, as if no cloud seeding project had been conducted. It effectively erases the artificial invention, shielding it from new appropriations and legal scrutiny. And here's a little screenshot of one of the excerpts that she quoted in there on Article D. It says, all water derived as a result of cloud seeding shall be considered a part of natural water supply in the same sense as if no cloud seeding project had been conducted. Kind of reminds me of gain of function or something where you're like, oh, we didn't actually do the thing that we're doing. And there's just a wording maneuver to kind of get people to shut up.
You are a liar, Matt Weinglass. Gain of function was not done in wherever it was done. If it was done, it wasn't done, but if it was done, it would have been done in North Carolina. Yep. And then, you have Rand Paul arguing with him over the definition of, what is gain of function.
What is gain of function? Change the definition.
You know what you're doing.
Change the definition of vaccines, too. That's a good one. Just change it. So it's not something that actually does the thing it's supposed to do. Now you can say it's effective. It's effective because we changed what its purpose was. Its purpose used to be to stop you from getting something. That's why you take a vaccine versus, remember, it used to be called a flu shot. Remember that? Flu shot. That meant it lessened the severity. Everybody knew that. They went, oh, it's flu season, trying to get my flu shot because it's lessening the severity. It wasn't called a flu vaccine. It was called a flu shot. Now they changed vaccine because the COVID vaccine didn't act like a vaccine. And I'm like, oh, it's going to lessen the severity. And now everybody says flu vaccine, which is very weird. Isn't that weird that people call it a flu vaccine now? Never was called that before. But vaccine now has a different meaning. So why are we talking about that? Because cloud seeding. They're going to have to start talking about cloud seeding because you can't avoid it anymore. Trying to bring that Augustus on CNN and tell their audience that it doesn't exist was not going to happen. He has to, no, we're doing this thing. But we can change the definition of what the thing it is he's doing. So are we actually making any progress here, Craig? Because we can now talk about it. Just like I would say, I would ask Rand Paul, did he make any progress over those arguments with Fauci that we can actually now at least say to the general public that the thing exists? Does that little breadcrumb of a win, does that even matter?
No, because confirmation bias is at its highest point. Tribal behavior is at its highest point. Selective hearing is at its highest point. And we live in the United States of amnesia. So what happened yesterday is gone tomorrow. So, we don't have the most dumbest society. We do have the most propagandized society. And propaganda is a hell of a fucking drug because it can make you believing that the sky is yellow when it's actually blue in front of your face just for reasons that you want it to be true. Confirmation bias. It's like that's where we're at, unfortunately. And it manifests itself in the United States because nobody ever pays a price with anything. They can say whatever. I mean, you heard Lindsey Graham talking earlier. I mean, he goes, this is the best way to end the war. Take a sledgehammer to end the war. I said, really? That sounds like to me you're taking a sledgehammer to increase the war. And there's never a price to pay. There's no justice. So we have this type of behavior, not just with our politicians, but we have it now with our people.
Yeah.
So we didn't move the needle nowhere.
Well, that's a real fake news update, not brought to you
by Pfizer.